And we have other business to get ordered first.
Yes, I have a meeting. Do I have Margaret's financial report? She wants to go in.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Mayor, you're right. Okay, here we go. Good evening, everyone. I am Mayor Pam Pansy, chairperson of the Glen Cove Industrial Development Agency and Local Economic Assistance Board. Wait. I'm practicing my career, I believe.
Where's that thing?
Do you need a person taller than me?
Okay, are we live?
The picture now?
Okay. All right, start over.
I'm the IT person, that's
Evening,
Mary.
everyone. I am Mayor Pam Panzavec, the chairperson of the Glen Cove Industrial Development Agency and the Local Economic Assistance Corporation. It is Tuesday, February 25th. We are holding tonight's board meeting, at Glen Cove City Hall in the second floor conference room. This meeting is also being live streamed and recorded. Let us call the meeting to order at 5:33 p.m. Will the Secretary, Camille, please call the roll?
Lisa Travatello.
Here.
Tom Scott.
Here.
John Fielding.
Here.
Jim Capiello.
Here.
Chairperson Panzavec.
Here, I'm here. I make a motion to approve the minutes of the LEAC meeting held January 28th, 2025, and I ask for a second.
Second.
Motion seconded by Tom Scott. Are there any questions? Will the Secretary please poll the board?
Lisa Travatello.
I vote aye.
Tom Scott.
Aye.
John Fielding.
Aye.
Jim Capiello.
Aye.
And Chairperson Panzavec.
Aye. Motion carried. Will Ann Fangman please provide the members with her Executive Director's report?
Good evening, everyone. How are you?
We are wonderful.
All right, so most of my updates are going to be covered in our actual business today. Let's see. I will mention that, and Millen is aware of this, the IDA was named in a lawsuit involving Fairfield South. City was named as well. In addition to Fairfield, it involves, I'm not going to get into the details of it except to say that my understanding is that the city is going to be covering us in our defense, and we will keep the board posted and as needed, talk about it as things progress.
I think it's just simple slip and fall. You know, this happens all the time in IDs because you're in the chain of title. You get insurance from the applicant. In this case, since the city is also named, the thought is since we have very similar defenses to ask the city attorney if they or their outside counsel.
Yeah, I think their outside counsel is going to handle it. It was a garbage gate of some sort, and a child situation. Again, we really have no, we're in the chain of title. That's why we're essentially being named in the suit. And I think that's going to do it for me right now. Unless you have any questions about any of our open projects, because we're going to be getting into, I believe, the projects as we go on.
Okay.
All right.
So will Ann, for Margot Zildesi is not here, will Ann please provide the members with Margot's financial report?
Okay, does everyone have it in front of you? Yes. I pretend to be our CFO. By the way, Margot has been working very, very hard. We're going through our audits right now with PKF. We're doing Section 8 and CEA. We're doing IDA and LEAC. Currently, at our March board meetings, we're going to be taking a look at all of our reporting for the ABO and our financial statements and annual reports. So that is all in progress as we speak. So this is just for the period covering January 2025. Total revenue of $29,000 as compared to the annual budget of $317,000. We've had zero escrow revenue so far. Other revenue, $27,000 from admin fees as compared to the budget of $178,000. Interest income, $2,000 compared to the budget of $29,000. Then expense, $20,000 as compared to the annual budget of $313,000. Again, this is just for the first month of the year. Salaries and benefits incurred for $20,000 as compared to the annual budget of $176,000. Professional expenditures, zero have been incurred to date. There's $132,000 budgeted for the year. Other expense incurred, $51 compared to the annual budget of $5,000. There's a year-to-date operating surplus of $9,000. However, note that much of the revenue comes from project closings and has the ability to fluctuate throughout the year and year to year. We're just in month one. GIGLIC budget, the LEAC. We have admin fee revenue of $2,000 as compared to the annual budget of $2,000. That's essentially the IDA's admin fee to the LEAC. Escrow fee revenue of $0. Interest income of $350 as compared to the annual budget of $3,500. Total expenses of $2,000, covering what I already mentioned about the admin fee. And there's a year-to-date surplus of $330. Does anyone have any questions about the financial report?
We did a good job on that.
We're also going to have our governance committee meeting and audit committee meetings in March. So we're going to be going over the ABO reporting and the financial statements and audit reports at that time. And I was just going to confirm what days we're doing that. On March 20th, the governance committee is meeting at 3 o'clock, and the audit finance committee meeting is meeting at 6:30.
Who was on that?
Governance is led by yourself,
Right.
with, I believe it's Tom Scott and Jim Capiello.
Okay.
And audit finance is led by Vince Hartley as treasurer, vice chair, and I believe we have Dave Jimenez and John Fielding on that committee. So we're all squared away. Millen, was there something as well?
Nope.
Okay. All right. I guess we're moving into unfinished business.
Okay, so there are two unfinished business matters on the agenda for this evening. 115 Glen Street Property Owner LLC, the transcript of the public hearing for this project and all comments and all comments received were included in the board member packets. This evening, we're joined by Mr. John Gerber from Grow America.
Actually, that's Kevin Grimes.
By Mr. Kevin Grims. I was going to say.
We have our, we actually have Kevin Grims in the room. We're very
We have
excited.
the real deal.
Don't say that to John, but.
By Mr. Kevin Grims from Grow America, who will provide the members with an overview of the proposed pilot for 115 Glen Street project. And B, the Glen Cove Villas forbearance. So we want to start before I read B, or? All right, well, B will Millen Tyler please provide the members with an update on the status of the forbearance agreement with the Glen Cove Villas. So are there any questions on the unfinished business matters?
Okay, so I think we're
We need to
gonna,
get updated. Right.
yeah, I think we're going to
Start with Kevin.
start with Kevin Grimm. And everyone should have a copy, because we can't do it with the live stream going. Everyone should have a copy of the PowerPoint that Kevin will be referring to. Kevin, would you like to come up?
Sure.
You can be on camera and,
Oh.
yeah, actually, you might want to do this.
Okay. Madam Chair, Mayor, members of the board, Kevin Grims,
We're still doing it too.
Old habits. With Grow America, I started to say National Development Council because we were doing business as National Development Council, or NDC, for over 50 years. We changed names last year after a rebranding exercise. But it's been several years since I've been before this board. So I don't know, most of you probably don't know me. And our organization, Grow America, is a national nonprofit. We work on behalf of only municipalities and local development organizations, local development corporations like the IDA. And we provide several services and products, one of which is reviewing incentive packages for real estate developments to determine, to help right-size that incentive package to establish financial feasibility. But we also look at making the appropriate determination of the appropriate amount of public incentives. So in order to create feasibility without providing
more than what the projects are necessary. So we do that on behalf of many IDAs throughout New York State and many municipalities and similar entities throughout the country. And we have analyzed some developments before the Glen Cove IDA in years past. And essentially what we look to do is to review the application, review the financial models submitted by the developers, and make that determination of the appropriate sizing of public incentive package. Keeping in mind the uniform tax exemption policy that you have established and passed here at the Glen Cove IDA. So we have reviewed the application, we have reviewed the financial model, and I'll present the findings based upon that. So, so the project summary. This is a 29-unit mixed income, 3-story apartment building, mix of studios, 1s and 2-bedroom units, which is a typical split for similar comparable residential developments. Of the 29 units, 23 are market rate, and 6 are considered a workforce based upon what you have established in your UTEC. 3 units priced at 130% of area median income, and 3 units at 80% of area median income. There is parking for 42 vehicles for the 29-unit development, including 13 in the senior center. There's a lot of amenities for the residents, including a fitness center, tenant lounge, and a rooftop outdoor deck. Of note is that this property is located in a CDBG eligible area. It's in the downtown and an area that is recognized as a blighted area. So that makes it eligible for your enhanced pilot of up to 15 years per your uniform tax exemption policy. The applicant is a development team with a very experienced and accomplished track record for delivering comparable developments in Long Island and in New York. So in terms of the rent roll, again, it's a mixed income product, 23 units that are 23 units that are market. The workforce units, it's a higher level at 130%, and they are designated as workforce, but there's not as much of a differential as the units that are priced at 80% of area median income. So you'll see all of the rents in that slide that in the title of rent roll. So that's the income stream. In terms of the development budget, oh, and by the way, we look at all third-party reports. So those market rate rents are comparable with other developments in terms of their asking price and those rents on a per square foot basis. So the development budget is $12.5 million. The per unit cost is about $430,000. Now, a few years ago, I would have said that's a high per unit cost. Actually, that's pretty efficient based upon where the market is right now in terms of construction costs and how the interest rates has risen. We look at a lot of residential developments throughout Long Island. That is a very good cost in terms of delivering units at $430,000 per unit for studios, 1s and 2 bedrooms. This is a traditional capital structure. We look at a lot of these developments, and most of them are structured accordingly. 65% of the development funded with a construction loan, and 35% with equity. So that's a significant equity slug, but that's consistent and comparable to other developments. So your uniform tax exemption policy authorizes a pilot up to 15 years, an enhanced pilot up to 15 years based upon its location in the downtown in a CDBG eligible area. As such, we looked at the operating pro forma of the development budget and suggest within your UTEC a 15-year schedule that provides as-is current taxes during construction periods, which are assumed to be 2 years, and 100% abatement during the first operating year. In years In the pilot year, 4 through 15, or operating year 2 through 13, there's a straight phase-in based upon that abatement starting at that 100% and burning off until the 15th year, and the full taxes would start at in year 16. So over the 13 years of operations after that construction period, the aggregate taxes are over $2 million. That averages $5,300 per unit. $5,300 a unit is the average during that term, and that's still a pretty significant tax to apply to an operating pro forma. The as-complete tax estimated by a third-party appraiser, SBS, was estimated at $10,600. And I'll touch upon that in a second.
10,600 a unit.
10,600 a unit, yes, thank you. So of note is the current taxes on the land itself is just a little under $7,000. So that average tax during the pilot term is is almost a 9-time multiplier of the existing taxes. So are there savings? Yes. Are the savings necessary? Absolutely. But it's a very significant increment on your current taxes, a 9-time multiple over the existing taxes. And as I'll review in a second, this development is still very tight in terms of the margins for debt and equity returns. Based upon our review of this, the predictability of that schedule for purposes of attracting the necessary debt and equity is absolutely critical in order for this development to be financially feasible. So on the next slide, with your pilot schedule, that's the numbers broken out into the individual years. I'll call your attention to the column called entitled Savings and the column entitled The Pilot. The pilot is roughly a 50%, or the pilot payments over the term is roughly 50% of the full taxes. But I'll also call your attention to what's highlighted in yellow on this chart, and the estimated full taxes on a per unit basis and a per square foot basis is over $10,600 on a per unit basis and over $10 a square foot on a gross square foot basis. Again, that's a number that an operating pro forma just wouldn't be able to absorb in order to meet expected coverage ratios for the lenders and the return ratios for the investors. So it's a 50-50 split, so roughly it's a 50% savings during the term of the pilot. In the next slide, we have the summarized benefits package. So it's obviously the mortgage recording tax based upon that 65% loan, the sales tax for the building materials, as well as the pilot. So the total financial package for this development, adding the total savings, total tax savings, is a little bit less than $2.5 million. Project cost is $12.5 million. So roughly the overall financial package is about 20% of the project cost. What we've seen of reviewing dozens of these projects on an annual basis is that typically the IDA package is somewhere between 15 and 25% of the overall cost. So this is right in the middle of what we typically see for comparable residential developments, particularly on Long Island. So you have a five-time multiplier in terms of private investment to the savings that are provided by this proposed financial package. The next slide, or the next sheet, really demonstrates why this development is not financially feasible without the savings provided through the IDA. Again, based upon the estimate of full taxes, that's $309,000 a unit, and this is in the stabilized year, in the third year, and that's equivalent to $10,600 a unit. And you'll see in the column underneath, without pilot, if the development paid full taxes of $309,000, and you apply the debt service based upon that 65% loan, cash flow would be negative. Cash flow is negative over $100,000. So simply put, a development with projected negative cash flow would not be able to be done. And then we ran two scenarios. One, the pilot in the third year, which we consider the stabilized year, and then also the average pilot paid during the term. And you'll see that in the third year, it's still very tight in terms of the debt coverage ratio. Lenders want at least a 1.2. They actually prefer higher debt coverage ratios than 1.23. And from the investment return standpoints, we look at three metrics: cash on cash, yield to cost, and internal rate of return. Without getting into too much detail, what we're seeing there with cash on cash, yield to cost, and internal rate of return are slightly less than what the market typically expects. So the short of it is that this is a very tight development, just based upon where the costs are and where the operating expenses are, including the discounted real estate tax. So is it financially feasible? Yes, but it's still very tight in terms of, it's marginal in terms of the financial returns. So the short of it is that the development for the financial incentive package is absolutely necessary to create financial feasibility. Is there undue level of enrichment as a result of this? Absolutely not, based upon our findings. So in addition to the 29 units, there are a lot of other supplemental benefits that are summarized on the last page. And that includes, I'm sorry. So we're always looking to demonstrate that there's a net public benefit between what is paid by the development and other public benefits compared to the financial package. So on this sheet, the benefits analysis, again, there's a little bit less than $2.5 million of savings based upon this proposed financial package. But the public benefits includes the full IDA taxes over the term, which is a little over $2 million. We also value the affordable housing, looking at the difference between the incomes, the market rate rents, and the workforce rents. So we value that as well as the estimated city fees. So there's a net public benefit of almost $700,000. In addition to the net public benefit, we have to look at the supplemental benefits. That includes the 50 temporary construction jobs. This is a long time vacant and underutilized property, so it enhances the land use of the subject property, and it replaces it with much needed both market rate housing and workforce housing, because there's obviously a need for both in terms of market rate and rental housing. And fortunately, based upon what you've seen in the marketplace, rental housing, usually when it's built, it's absorbed pretty quickly based upon the strength of the market here in the central business district of Glen Cove. And then of note is the additional disposable income by the residents who would be moving into this residential facility. And with that, I'd be happy to take any questions.
Can I start?
Yeah, you can start.
You got something there?
I'm looking for a slide with that.
I'll start at the beginning. Under the IDA's uniform tax exempt policy, how does this project qualify as a market rate housing project?
Well, the majority of it is market rate.
Well, why is there no difference in rent between the market rate and the workforce housing?
Well, there is
Was a $50 difference?
yeah, there is not much difference between the units, the three units that are 130%. I would acknowledge that, but that the uniform tax exemption policy still identifies workforce as 130% or less. So, so that breakdown is based upon what is outlined in the uniform tax exemption policy. And that 130% is really a byproduct of the Long Island Workforce Act that was passed 12 years ago that defined workforce up to 130%.
That's the definition of workforce, 130%?
Based on,
Up to,
Sorry.
yes,
up to.
up to. And, one thing that I would point out is that when that was authorized and passed, the area median income was probably about 70,000. The area median income now is $156,000. So when you apply those area median income and the adjustments to the AMI of 156,000, those rents are very high. But it's still based upon a definition per the Long Island Workforce Housing Act that was passed 12 years ago.
I just want to note that our previous UTEP defined no affordable and workforce housing. The UTEP that we adopted, I believe it was 2023 at this point, defined both projects needing to have 10% affordable, which is up to 80%, and 10% workforce, which is up to 130%.
And with that, you get the enhanced pilot, which requires a longer term under the UTEP.
That also needs to meet some of the other qualifying.
Right, it's in particular area.
Yeah. But the city's inclusionary housing policy only has 10% at 80% AMI, 15% at, I think it's 100% AMI, and or 20% at 120% AMI. So this goes above and beyond the city's inclusionary housing policy, what we adopted in the UTEP.
So, I'm sorry, what was the AMI you mentioned as, 156 now?
156, 100.
156, that's for Nassau?
That's all of Long Island.
Nassau and Suffolk consolidated that HUD gives us annually.
Yeah.
It's what we use for all our
Changes.
programs, yes.
Changes.
So, just roughly doing the math, 130% is roughly $200,000?
Well, adjusted for household size based upon the unit.
Roughly 200,000.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you think somebody that's making $200,000 is gonna live in that part of Glen Cove?
Maybe?
Is that a question for the developer or no? Okay.
Look at the developer list.
Those are the qualified rents based upon, your uniform tax exemption policy. So I think you make a valid point is that those units that are at 130%, there's not much difference between that and the market rate rents. So essentially you have 10% of the units at 80% that are truly workforce.
And then you're kind of guaranteeing 3 additional units at the lower end of market, which I think we all acknowledge is high. The market is high.
In fact, Kevin, for your estimated value of affordable housing, do I understand correctly, you didn't even value the 130%ers?
We didn't even value them just because there wasn't much of a difference between the units at 130% and the market rate units.
So that 674 is only for the 80%.
Right. So essentially you have 10% of the units that are workforce units.
So I'm looking at affordable, and I'm not talking about any percentages of AMI or anything, but I'm seeing 2 studios and 1 bedroom. And I'm thinking about all the people in the senior center who are living on their social security, and 2,250 is more than their social. I mean, I talk with them very regularly about looking for places. Their social security is probably 1,800 for a lot of them, or even less. So, I was kind of thinking maybe that would be a great place for people from the senior center to just walk across the street and go. But I have a lady who's, we're looking for an apartment for her, and her landlord happens to be quite well-to-do and is charging her $2,900, and somebody else is subsidizing her $300 a month. She has probably $52 left aside from her rent and the subsidy. So, I mean, it's a problem. It's a real problem. So, $2,250 is a lot.
Madam Chairman, can I speak?
Of course you can speak.
Yes, we, the chairperson. So, just for the record, Dan Deegan, Butch Deegan, trying for the, after we have Alec Weinstein and Bill Beckler, from the development team here. So, it's interesting, so I referenced it before, that most projects on Long Island require 10% affordable.
Right.
That's here. So this other 10%, while in this case, it seems to be at or near market, it is going to be a restriction on the rents for those units going forward. So as things change, it's always going to be limited to that. So it is a market limitation. I'm sure there are people that participate in the senior center that will be able to afford some of the market rate. So there's no doubt we're not holding this out as the answer to affordable housing in downtown. I know there's other projects like one at the train station that's 100% affordable, that's going to have much lower AMIs being presented. That's not what this is. This is a downtown market rate project with a workforce and affordable component, which is what's called for under the master plan of the city and under the UTAP focus. So that's what we're trying to.
I just,
I
can watch out
recall
for my,
in 2016, I believe this project was an all affordable project. It was proposed as an affordable project, but I think at a denser, if I'm recalling, the density was higher, but then what ended up getting approved through the land use approval process was this project, if I'm recalling that.
So what's crazy is before coming over, look, we opened up this file in our office in 2014. It's 11 years ago. We started working on this project, which is crazy.
I know, I went across the street to look at it.
So it was originally supposed to be a lot bigger. We went through the planning process with the city. Mr. Scott was on the planning board for a period of time. I'm not sure if we were at the end, but it was downsized. Basically, trying to address the concerns that were raised by the city and its planning board and the planning officials. And this is what we consider, it's been right-sized, so to speak. It's what we think. We feel that it will be feasible with the IDA's assistance. We've been at this a long time. This has been a blighted property for a long time. The senior center needs parking. This will provide 13 parking spaces in perpetuity, which is going to address the long-term situation. It's a private piece of property. There's no right to have parking there at all.
I know that.
So, and we work very closely and continue to with the senior center to address that. So that's a big benefit, I think, that this development is going to bring, in addition to everything that Kevin mentioned. Just spending the downtown construction jobs. Some of the construction work is hopefully going to be done by Glen Cove contractors. There was a letter in the record from Maxwell Plumbing, who's a Glen Cove entity, that they're very supportive of the project as well as the builders. So this has really been going on a long time. We have a time of the essence closing with the seller, and we're really up against the deadline. Alec is working with the banks and through a broker. All this needs is this IDA to vote and say yes. As Kevin, and thank you for your presentation, because what you confirmed what we've been saying is that this project does not work without the IDA. This is a absolute necessity, and the project falls apart without it. We put so much time and effort into this and money over so many years trying to address all the city's concerns. And we've fit ourselves into this IDA's UTAP, the Uniform Tax Exemption Policy, adopted by that. We would not otherwise provide for 20%. We would do 10%, or we would do zero. At Dan's point, a developer would do zero. We're fitting ourselves into the policy. So that's where we are.
Question I have, if you don't mind, is our UTEP says up to 80% and up to 130%. I guess my assumption is that you're going for the upper end of that, but is there any room for consideration, I guess?
So it's an interesting question, and I welcome Kevin and Grow America being part of this, because it's really just a math exercise. So there's the rents that are recognized here. We back into what level of debt and equity can be supported here. And if the rents were twice as much, we wouldn't need as much IDA assistance. The rents are lower, we need more IDA assistance to get to the same level of return on debt and equity. And that's
Dan, to that point, Kevin was assuming a 65-35 debt to equity split. Well, what is the actual number?
It's hopefully going to be higher than that, meaning that hopefully there's going to be more debt involved, right? We're talking about probably, I think we put in 9.5 million, which is more like 75%.
There's less than that.
So that's not, it's about 70-something%. But whether it's debt or equity, it still has to be a return on it, otherwise, it doesn't make sense to go forward.
Well, I'm assuming it's gonna be debt, not equity.
Well, it's millions of dollars of equity have to go into this, so you see, under Kevin's assumption, about $4 million worth of equity has to go into it. We're hoping to get that down to like $2 or $3 million,
Right.
$2.5, $3 million. That depends on the financing markets, and which he's been fully engaged with, dealing with Webster Bank, I think you mentioned, and Providence Bank.
Problem.
And they've seen drafts, of them saying, you have to show us the approval before we're going to go ahead on this. Is that the sell of the property, was this a stake that's for 10 or 11 years now?
Good question. The debt that's on here though, is that based on what?
That's based on Kevin's.
65 or 75?
Yeah, we did a standard review based upon what's currently in the market. Typically, it's a 65-35 split, again, based upon construction loan and equity.
So
Now, there's always opportunity to convert a construction loan to a higher permanent loan, but we just ran the numbers with a 65%, and you'll see that the debt coverage ratio is still extremely tight. So if you can get a 75% loan to value, terrific, but it would be difficult to get 75% loan.
but that would also increase this debt that you have to pay over the annual and lower the cash flow, right?
Yes.
That would be worse.
But you have less equity that needs to return. So yes, so
But the equity return is not 100 though.
it's baked in, right, Kevin, the equity return?
Mhm.
Yeah. So,
So just looking at this without pilot, if the debt goes up, this cash flow is going to go down, right?
What goes there?
Your operating pro forma,
Uh-huh.
without pilot, the debt service, the last thing, $615,000, that's based on 65%. So you're saying if you're gonna get 75%, that's gonna go, those payments are gonna go higher, and the cash flow is gonna be more negative, right?
Well, it only shows negative if you're paying full taxes. But even.
Yeah,
with the
I
pilot-
understood, but that's what I'm asking, like, so said differently, if we give the pilot and you get more debt, that 144 is gonna be gone. In scenario number 2, in scenario number 3, that 51 probably will be gone if you get more debt, correct?
Well, the debt coverage ratios would be tighter, correct?
but that would be good for the developer to the extent that he then is having put out less equity. So that's the trade-off, because less equity, then you don't need as much, you're getting a return on a smaller. piece of equity.
I understand, I'm just trying to understand the numbers, like what is in front of you, what these represent. So like, even, like the gross income here is lower than what's on the rental, I think, right? 1126, no, I'm sorry, the rental is lower, 1103 versus 1126, is that?
Yeah, and the difference is, this is the rent roll was the initial starting rents.
Mm-hmm.
We were looking at the stabilized year in the third year, so it's a little bit higher in the stabilized year.
Oh,
Mr. Ornstein would like to say something about that. Mr. Ornstein, something.
Yeah, again, I think that, as Mr. Grimm said, it is a tight development, but we are committed to the city to make this happen. The returns are probably less than we would ordinarily want, but we think it's a good project. We've come so far in terms of solving or helping to solve the senior problem, increasing our affordability component, and bringing this project to fruition in the city, believing that in the future, we will earn what it needs to earn for a typical investment. But it is tight, and without the pilot, clearly you can see it can't be built. With respect to debt coverage ratio and loan to value, those are going to be set by the lender. And so lender typically, as Kevin said, is about 1.2, and actually 1.25 is what we're seeing in the market now. So it will reduce the amount of debt that we can get, but increase the amount of equity that we have to keep in the project. With respect to affordable housing, and Mr. Scott's comment about 130% is pretty much market. As Ann said, we're permitted to charge up to that, but if it doesn't rent, we're going to fill the apartment and make sure that it is at the right number. As Dan mentioned, it is in perpetuity that restriction is on it. So while market rents can continue to grow, that will be held back by the AMI, which is growing but at a much slower pace. So my point is that we're committed to the city, we're committed to making this happen. It is tight, but we believe that we can and will make it work for the city and for us.
What kind of stuff's in the operating expenses? Because I see here it says operating expenses on high end estimated at 10.5 per unit. On this it's showing 9.7 per unit, a little less, but at 283. What's in there? What are the big things in operating expenses?
Operating expense, again, we evaluate a lot of these residential developments, and operating expenses have gone up significantly. One of the larger expenses, obviously, that we're trying to control here is real estate expenses. We've seen insurance expenses more than double in the last few years. Utilities, maintenance, I mentioned insurance, and so we look at a lot of these developments, and it's usually between $7,000 and $10,000 per unit, or $7,000 to $9,000 per unit, exclusive of real estate taxes for a market rate development. So they're a little bit on the high side, but not outrageous in terms of an operating expense. But even if we lower that operating expenses, these returns are still marginal in terms of what the lenders expect to achieve from a debt coverage ratio and the investors based upon their returns.
The other thing is that this is 29 units is not a large project. Now, on this resume, 102 units, 1,000 units. You get an economy of scale with bigger buildings, so it's also pretty, when you express it per unit, it seems higher than normal projects. It's not a 150 unit apartment. Cheap product for downtown.
And then from the additional benefits, what's the time frame of the 50 temporary construction jobs? And is there any FTEs involved with this? I thought there was one.
Yeah, there's one or two full-time equivalents.
So I think the question is, when would construction start in the perfect world? I mean, I know you're committed and we have to close by the seller by June 1st. So
We expect to be shoveling the ground right at closing. We're finalizing our construction drawings with Jim O'Grady and his team. We've had some conversations with the building department about potentially helping us expedite the review process by engaging an outside consultant, which I think is permitted and possible. So we'd like to be pouring the foundation this spring.
And the
Please.
length of that, your projection
Assuming-
timeline for these jobs?
It's about 18 months to construction and another 6 months to lease up and stabilization. So we'll get a total process of 24 months, but the construction jobs will be probably over 18 months. And yes, there's one FTE is a full-time supervisor, which is part of the OpEx, operating expenses.
Just want to note that, Kevin, the total project cost that you're representing in the presentation is about $1 million more than the project cost from the IDA application.
That might be a function of, we had asked for an updated, because we typically like to look at more detailed financial models than what is represented in the IDA. So I think, if I remember correctly, we had asked for an updated financial model. And these development budgets are fluid, and I think we went with the most recent financial model from the applicant.
So is 12,479?
Pretty close to where we are now.
All
Again,
right,
we're working off of schematic drawings.
Yeah,
We should have final drawings in probably another 60 days, at which point we'll have it bid and budget, because we need that for our lender also to close major trades. So it's coming more into focus as we continue to move along the finalization of plans.
so Millen, how will we treat that then in terms of the application?
Yeah, I think that when it moves forward, I asked Dan to submit a letter amending the application with the updated numbers. So it's easy enough.
I mean, if the board's so inclined, obviously prefer to the board, we would like to move forward tonight if possible. Because we really are in time pressure. We have to get to the banks with an approval, and we have to, this time, the essence closing of the seller, who's been, we've been a contract with for 11 years or something. I don't know how long the contract is. Yeah.
Well,
And certainly, whatever numbers, as you said, this has been moving target since we started 11 years ago. Costs kept going up and up and up. I can represent on the record that whatever the latest cost was that we looked at, certainly for IDP purposes, we'll accept that number.
This is good.
Now, finish that thought, I have a couple more questions.
Oh, okay. This is on the agenda as a discussion item. In all favor, I've drafted an approving resolution, depending on whether or not you get all your questions answered tonight and want to move forward. Dan made it very clear that, they want to move forward quickly. If not, then, you tell me what your proposed time is.
But, let me just point out, let me say, move forward quickly. This is our 5th time. I do IDA work all over. It's our 5th time before this board on this project. And certainly we'll come back 6, 7, 8 times, whatever it takes to get it done, but it's not moving it quickly necessarily. We have to get to a place where we want to get the shovel on the ground and start this project, get the financing. So if everybody likes the project and supports it, this would be the time to move forward.
That's what we're trying to do tonight.
Yeah.
So, me being a money guy, and I won't dwell on this too much longer, on sources and uses page, what is this 200,000 for FFE? What is FFE?
Furniture, fixture, and equipment.
200,000 for the entire project? 29 units?
Well, they're unfurnished.
It's amenities. It's the gym equipment, it's the rooftop equipment, it's the lounge, the lobby.
Thank you.
You know,
And I'm not clear on the debt. You have finance costs of almost $1 million. What is that based on 8.1 million or 9.5 million? I don't understand that. Well, if it's based on the 8.1 million, $974,000.
Yeah, the
is
majority
roughly
of,
like 12%.
the majority of that finance cost is the capitalized interest over, I think we assumed a 2-year construction period. So the interest rate times that construction loan times 2. And then there's also, besides the capitalized interest, the commitment fees and other related costs for the lender.
So just to explain those terms, because I think what he's saying, there's a while before you get to the point where rent's going to be paid. So financing costs is you have to pay interest during a period of time till you get to that, and that's kind of lumped into that category. So it's not necessarily a one-time fee, it's basically fees that are put into the budget that way. It's the way it's characterized on a budget as opposed to, it's not paid up front, but it's paid during that 2-year period.
I don't know which.
We have a breakdown of it.
Yeah.
Of
You
the
use
budget.
6.5%, did you?
I'm curious about the interest rate on the loan.
Yeah, we either use 6.5 or 7%, but 6.5 is kind of low for a construction loan right now. So
Probably more like 2.5 right now.
yeah,
I think it's higher than that.
yeah.
Well, it's probably SOFR plus 300 or somewhere in that range, so it's probably.
So
Yeah.
the other thing I'll point
And,
out.
and really it's a blended rate because construction loans are, interest rate is higher than permanent. And we assume that the construction is, that the dollar amount is the same as the permanent, which is not always the case. So it's really a blended rate. But to your point, I think it's lower. And so the fact of the matter is that those interest fees cost can be higher than what's reflected in this budget.
Plus, we have a broker who's organizing the debt for us, so that fee would be in there also.
And until the lender is selected, we don't know what those finance costs are.
Right. Out of, I'll skip the legal costs.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Kevin,
2014.
Kevin, let's talk about the financial assistance pilot schedule. Okay, what's the purpose of pointing out land taxes only? I mean, the taxes being paid right now are 17,000, right? And change. I mean, there's a building on the property.
Yeah, so I looked at that, yes. The existing taxes are 17,600. So I was thinking that the taxes are based upon land alone, but to your point, the current taxes are 17,600. That's the operative number.
Okay. So according to this pilot schedule, the first year of construction, they would pay that same dollar amount, 17 and change. And the second year would be 17 and change.
Yes.
So my question is, what happens if the project is not completed in 2 years? What are the taxes in the third year?
It's that same dollar amount. The first year of the pilot.
I don't think so.
We would typically structure the pilot so it is fixed dollars. So that regardless of the timing or status of construction, the pilot payable would be that column under pilot. So if they finish early, good for them. The lower pilot number they enjoy for a little bit longer period. If construction gets delayed, then they're eating into their lower pilot number period.
And when does that have to be done by?
Oh, the scheduled completion date would be 2 years.
It have to be at the end of 2 years.
Right. But,
So why would the pilot schedule be constructed like that? Let's say that there's another supply chain problem, and the project isn't done for 4 years. So you're telling me in year 3 and 4, they're still paying the same 17,000?
No.
No. In year 3, the answer is 17,641, just the first year of the pilot, 100% abatement. But to answer your question, in year 4,
Yeah.
come hell or high water, it'd be 40,121. So that really is the risk on the developer. But we structured that way to answer, I think, your concern that regardless of what happens, the pilot is this amount. So the developer is incentivized to develop and complete construction sooner rather than later. Because there is, as you pointed out, there is a penalty because the pilot starts on schedule.
And then, no, in addition to that, there is a fixed date, 2 years from closing that we have to be done by. If we're not done by then, not only do we have to pay the pilot, we have to come back to you and explain ourselves. Either you could default the project at that point, if we're not proceeding in good faith and we feel that we're just screwing around, or you could give us a short extension.
Where is that written?
That's going to be in the closing documents.
Right. For example, on the other project that we may or may not talk about, the villas, that's exactly the default that we've been sort of forbearing from. They did not finish on time, and that's why you give me instructions to terminate that project. In theory, worst case scenario, the same thing could happen here. Right? If they don't finish within 2 years, then they have to come back, as Dan says, and either ask for extensions or explain why, and then it's up to your discretion as to whether or not you want to give them that extension.
I also want to say, we may or may not get there tonight with a resolution. But if we do get there tonight with a resolution, another concern I've heard about is, and a concern, we all have, is projects not closing in a timely way. So I believe Millen has written a period of time by which in the resolution, the project would need to close by.
6 months is what I've written. So if it was, for example, to pass tonight, their clock to close with us, which presumably includes closing with the lender, is 6 months. If they haven't closed within 6 months, then they would have to come back and sort of explain why. And again, it's up to your discretion as to whether or not you want to give them more time. But in order to address the concern that Ann just voiced, we put a fairly short time fuse on it in all candor. A lot of other IDs do 1 year, but we put 6 months in, and so that's the resolution as I ran it.
As a placeholder. If you feel differently, that can change, but, we've been discussing having that in our resolutions going forward.
And our plan is 3 months, right? About 3 months, June 1st would be ideal. Yeah, so.
Yeah, that's subject to permitting and things, so we get around.
Right, so there's a small fudge factor there, but not a lot. So if the resolution passes tonight, in February, by August, they would have closed with us and presumably their lender as well. And therefore construction would start, spring or summer.
So I would just finish with, and I'll throw this out to anybody involved with the project. What is the quid pro quo for the city to give you $2.5 million almost in tax savings? What is the city of Glen Cove getting in return
Right, so,
for $2.5 million?
so there's a number of things that the city's getting. First of all, the city has a policy, has a plan that calls for this type of project in downtown. So it's provided, they want more units in the downtown, more rentals, they want more in the downtown area. So that's a benefit. They want an affordable component, which is a benefit, which has been quantified at $600-something thousand, right, up at 2.4 million. There's the construction jobs, which hopefully they're going to provide jobs for people and some of the contractors in the downtown. There's going to be
Are they all going to be Glen Cove residents?
no, I'm sure they're not all going to be, but the point is, it's not just the city, it's this region. Hopefully, the construction jobs are hopefully going to be good for the area. I can't say for sure exactly what it's going to be, but this is a long list of benefits that we go through. So that's the construction jobs. Then there's the, which Kevin mentioned, the tax incremental. Even with this tax break, it's going to produce a lot more revenue to the school district, to the city, to the library district than would otherwise be if that building stayed there the way it is. It's going to remove the blight that's there right now. It's going to provide permanent parking for the senior center on a private piece of property that they have no right to be on that property right now. The city, we're going to condemn that property. Of course, the city a lot of money to provide that same amount, and they're getting that as part of this project. It's providing, I mentioned the affordable. It's going to be a super job. I think it's a removal of blight. I mean, this project's been an eyesore for a long time. It's vacant right now. It's an estate. There was some environmental issues that were minor, but that's all going to be, perfect as part of construction, perfectly clean. We have a brand new aesthetically pleasing building. Are we missing other things, other benefits?
Spending by the residents.
Spending, just going to provide more residents in the downtown to hopefully to help the restaurants. I think every resident in the downtown is going to help activate the downtown more. We all know we all eat it and shop down here, but if you can meet more customers, and I think that's going to be part of it.
I think one of the things that we discussed over the course of the planning process was to not add any additional retail to this, rather provide the parking, help the senior center, and then our residents that support the existing retail functions that are happening that are trying to be developed into the city. So the benefit to the city long term is that you have 29 residents, 29, maybe 30, 40, 50 people who are now living and contributing to the city. Plus the fact that if there is a housing shortage, you talk about the price of rent. Well, the price of rent is very much related to supply and demand. So the limitation of supply and continuing constrained supply of housing will never break that open. So it is a good project in a part of town that probably needs it. I think it needs it. Plus you have the residents, and without it, it can't get built, as Mr. Grimes is pointing out. So I think it's a public-private partnership. We're not seeking any other public financing. This is all private dollars and bank financing, which is personally guaranteed, as you know. So I think
There'll also be building permit fees paid to the city. There's also going to be IDA fees paid to the IDA's part of it. So there is a lot of financial coming back in actual cash as well as the intangibles that will be revitalizing the downtown.
What about the retaining wall? Does someone just want to address the retaining wall? I know it's something we've discussed with.
which one? The existing
Building.
one?
I guess the need, if this project was to stay, like if this was to stay as is, isn't there an issue with the retaining wall that's on the
The
property?
existing timber retaining wall is deteriorating.
Okay.
And we're replacing that with new concrete walls and stabilizing the slope, et cetera, which protects the road up above and the residents that live up there.
I guess just one final comment. I would direct this to you, Mr. Weinstein, is Why would you want to invest $12.5 million at a cap rate of 5%? I could do a lot better than that for you. Would you get this?
My grandchildren, Mr. Scott. Listen, I think it's a good investment. We've been here for 11 years. We have a lot of sunk money in this already. And so we think that, ultimately it'll make money. Will it make money today, tomorrow? No. But, it's a long game when it comes to apartments. I'm cashing checks of apartments that my great-grandfather built on 86th Street in New York City. So, I think there's value to it, tremendous value. Eventually. I like the city. I'm a Long Beach guy, so.
You're a what?
I'm a Long Beach guy. I like the city
You
environment.
should have told us that 11 years ago.
Oh, yeah, the one I was saying.
Not to put words in your mouth, but if it wasn't for being here for 11 years trying to get this done, looking at it the way it is today, and if you had to make a choice, you probably wouldn't do it. It's the 11 years you've already invested, right?
I think that's part of it. It's something. We're here.
Yeah.
And, we're married to it. We want to see it happen.
I just want to ask my IDA colleagues and Ann, from the public hearing that you attended on this project, do you feel from the senior center parking, the other issues that were raised by the community have been adequately addressed within tonight's discussion? Was there any low-hanging fruit that we need to talk about that wasn't addressed in the public hearing of our residents?
Well, the comments I saw from the public were all positive.
And the senior center parking was.
It's going to be a disaster during the construction.
There's no
I mean, it's going to be, and as much as we're saying 13 spaces, we're taking much more than that. It's going to be a problem, 13 spaces. Construction will be the issue.
I think there also was a comment on how, and I think to the developer's credit, they said this needs to be addressed, how it's going to operate, the 13 spaces.
Yes.
Is it going to be gated or not gated? Will it be attended or not attended? I think there was some uncertainty as to what the parking implementation plan was going to be.
Yes. Is there a question? I'm sorry. I'll speak to it.
Yeah,
Is
yes.
it being addressed?
Yes, it is being addressed. We've engaged VHB is our traffic engineer, and we've engaged them to work out the details of how access to the parking garage and how we permit that with the senior center so that they can gain access to the parking. So we're working on those details. That'll be part of the final plan.
Thank you.
But further, just a postscript to that is that, we will have super there, so there will be someone monitoring, although we don't want them to be there to be their full-time job, watching who parks and who doesn't. But we'll have a pass system with the senior center that'll work out with Christine Rice. So we're satisfied.
And how long out of that 18-month, this came up earlier today in discussion, how long out of that 18-month, give or take, construction period would those spaces that are currently available be out of commission? Would it be the full 18 months? Or I know at the public hearing, it was brought up, like, how do we manage, I guess, having those spaces completely not available for the shortest period of time?
Yes. I think we have to work
That's a
out
hard
the,
question to answer.
in the construction, once we get the podium up, and we're working above the ground floor, there may be parking available. But the offset to that, if I can, is the long-term solution, is that we're going to do it in perpetuity. As long as the senior center's there, they have those spots. Will it be inconvenient for a period of time? I think so. Does it solve all the problems? Definitely not. But we won't have a lease, which there is no lease right now. And so, it is a long-term resolution to the problem. But during construction, there may be a period of time, probably 9 months-ish. We'll have to figure out.
Will VHB help maybe put that together? As far as VHB may be able to help also advise, or I guess whoever you're using to put together your drawings and your plans to help
Understand.
you understand, like for Village Square, for instance, we had a phase, there's a municipal parking lot. And we sort of had this phased plan that throughout the construction period, we expected X spots to be available, in months 3 to 9. And that we had like a little bit of a parking plan.
We talked about that.
And again, I'm only bringing that up because the question was asked, things that came out of the public hearing, those were the things at least I heard predominantly during the transcripts. Yeah, I mean, the transcripts in our packets.
Yeah. I
You
just
know,
want to make
take a
sure we're
look.
addressing them
Yeah.
within.
Yeah,
Our review.
There was also was there civic support?
all the comments that I received in writing were positive.
Okay.
4.
And I believe we also received the Libby letter, the Long Island Builders Institute letter, in addition to, yes,
Residential.
right, in addition to the resident letters and I believe one business that was mentioned.
I think when Christine was here, she also, supports the project, as you said, and just working out the details of how it operates, which we will work out with her and the city.
So, just one more thing, and I'll shut up. Kevin, in your pro forma analysis, you had a vacancy rate of 5%. What happens if that vacancy rate is 20%?
You know your wallet? I think I'll let the developer answer that question.
I'm sorry?
Based upon our observation of the market, any quality market or affordable unit going into production is being absorbed. So, obviously, it would result in negative cash flow, but based upon our observation of the market, I don't think that will happen.
So in Glen Cove, on the current rental properties, they're running an average of 5% vacancy.
You won't get him to put it right.
As you look at our market, Glen Cove,
Whatever he puts right, it doesn't matter.
Percentage.
Might be high, it might be slightly higher than that.
yeah, I was asking about the vacancy rate
Yeah.
on average.
But
in Glen Cove.
that's a very different product. That's a very high-end product, so and the rents are a lot higher on that. So you can absorb a slightly higher vacancy rate when your rents are 60 to 80% higher than what these rents are.
Yeah, that's a very good point, right? So this is kind of affordable by design, these rents are lower than other new products around here because of the nature of it. It's not a luxury waterfront product. And, I think that's another benefit in terms of, well, it's not, even the 80% that are not regulated are going to be lower rents than what other new product is. So,
It's still a very high rent.
It is,
But
to me,
it's
affordable is a misnomer.
Yeah, it's a word, it's just a word.
Just a word that developers use to their advantage, which is.
I would agree with you with the
Not so
the 3
affordable.
units at 130%. The units at 80% of AMI, those are still very respectable rents, high, but there's a tangible difference between those rents. And
How's over here?
We
on the
believe
corner?
it's 98% occupied.
98% occupied?
Yes, it's high 90s.
Okay.
We get that information pretty regularly.
my mother lives in there now.
She does?
Really?
Yeah, she does, yeah.
It's nice, right?
Yeah, very nice.
Given the shortage of apartments and construction, washer dryers in every unit, stainless steel appliances, state-of-the-art, fixtures, a gym, lounge, rooftop deck, parking. It's highly unlikely that this would ever reach any kind of vacancy like that, in my opinion.
We're betting on it.
It's got 12.5 million.
I've not
Good, just one more thing. Through you, Mr. Weinstein, can you just explain briefly to the board why the corporate change has occurred? You've lost your partner, or you want to tell us about that?
Okay. He's here.
The partner is here.
Okay.
Partner is here. The former
You're
partner.
not
Former partner.
you're not reaching into your pocket, though.
Yes, so unfortunately, due to circumstances that have changed for me, I cannot participate financially. However, because of my long-standing relationship with Alan, which probably goes, I don't know, 20, 25 years, I'm going to still stay involved in the project and see it through the construction process. And that will be my role through the entire process, construction.
Okay, thank you.
So I did not distribute the resolution, but if you are inclined to vote on it, I'm certainly, I made copies, and I'm happy to walk you through what the resolution says. It's mostly in the standard form for your other approving resolutions. The notable differences being, as Ann pointed out, it's effective for 180 days from whenever it's adopted.
Work for yourself.
For secret purposes, the city acted as lead agency when they did all the approvals. For reasons that are never clear to me, the IDA was not named as an involved agency. Therefore, you're not bound by the city's determination. I can tell you that I and my firm have looked at all the submissions to the city, and I would recommend you come to the same conclusion that the city did, which is issuing a negative declaration under SECRA that this project will not have a significant adverse effect on the environment. That's one item in the resolution.
Wasn't the planning board required to issue the neg deck?
They were required to do something, but in theory, they could have done a positive deck. But yes, the planning board did look at the environmental impact and issued a neg deck.
So why does the city have to?
Well, I'm sorry, when I say the city, I mean the planning board. I apologize. I was speaking loosely, and I appreciate that you understand the difference. The other item that I would draw your attention to in the resolution is on page 7, where I listed the financial assistance. Sales tax, $356,509. You saw that in Kevin's presentation. Mortgage recording tax of up to $19,500,000. For the estimate of the real property tax exemption, this is sort of an ongoing debate in the IDA community as to whether or not you use the gross number or a present value discount. I want to point out that the number in here of $1,371,491 is from Kevin's report. That's a discounted number. Since that's not, it's still in flux, I would probably revise the resolution to add in both numbers. And just so you know, and we looked at it in Kevin's report, the undiscounted number is $2,045,701. So $2,045,701. And again, Kevin used those numbers when he was comparing the benefit to the cost of the exemptions to the benefit to the city. He used the $2,045,000 number. So I just want to point out that in the final resolution, if you pass it, I would add the $2,045,000 number and explain that difference.
So are you asking us to pass this tonight?
I'm not asking anything at all.
Okay.
I think
Well, no, and I just want to, can I just note something? Sorry. Because the net present value is so in flux, I mean, as you know, it was a topic at the conference we attended in Albany. There's, colleagues of yours kind of putting together meetings of the IDAs on Long Island to further discuss this.
Yep.
I would actually suggest to the board that we don't include the net present value number in the resolution at this time, because I wouldn't want you to include something that we then change our policy on or make a determination on. I don't know if we have a policy or determination yet as of our IDA on this. I don't think we do.
I don't think any of the IDA, Hempstead.
And New York City IDA has a methodology for this.
Yep.
But I've heard all kinds of things at this conference, different methodologies. It's being discussed. We've talked about how this project doesn't really trigger the prevailing wage statute, which Millen can explain, the 30% of
The other thing that Kevin did mention is the sort of the percent of the financial assistance over project cost. 20% is, maybe customary. There's another sort of benchmark, and that's 30%. If the public subsidies, what they call it, gets to 30%, then the developer is required under state law, with some exceptions, to pay prevailing wage. So this is well under that number, even using the 2 million number. And there's discussion that Ann and I are talking about as to whether or not IDAs should use the 2 million number, or since it's spread out over 15 years, whether or not you use a present value calculation. And that's sort of up in the air. I have no problem in, using the 2,045 number, in part because, mostly, because that's what Kevin analyzed, and that's, what he presented to you tonight.
Can I just say something, Madam Mayor? So we are requesting that this board move forward tonight. If you guys aren't comfortable, obviously that's the
Like
case. but-
7 pages, and as much as you're telling me what it says, I'd like to read it myself.
When is the next IDA meeting? We are up against the time, and I know you guys are anxious from the questions,
What's your drop dead date?
Well, I mean, we need to get in 2 weeks, or if we can't do it tonight,
I mean, it's up to Ms. Fangman, but we could call a special meeting. I don't think this board is ready to vote on this right now.
We can always
I
call
was
it-
not given any kind of indication prior to this meeting that the board wanted to vote tonight on this matter. I was given the impression that it was going to be for discussion. Although, and then again, it's up to all of your schedules and our chairperson's schedule, and if we're able to schedule a special meeting.
I think most of us are always willing to schedule a special meeting. I don't think that that's really an issue. I just
2 weeks
am
is not-
really.
Well, you're very accommodating because many IDAs don't.
I'm speaking for myself.
Yeah.
And we all live here, we all live one traffic light away. I'm not comfortable getting something in my hand and voting on it.
So we'll schedule a special meeting. We don't want to delay this any more than it has been already.
Thank you.
Within 10
So
to 14 days.
we'll have to
we'll
get
try to
everybody's,
something together.
Camille and I will get together with scheduling, and we will send dates, and we will send that to you all.
So, Tom, are you, for the special meeting, do you want the developer to appear, or do you want to reach out through me? And
No, I just want to make Dan come.
Yeah.
Legal fees number is sort of sticking out, so he's billing what's earning.
He's billing us, he's happy with that.
I'm happy to attend if you'd like, if you'd like
Whatever
to
your
hear.
schedule allows.
And you guys.
There's nothing more important on my schedule.
Yeah, you guys, this takes precedent, whatever's good for you guys.
Well, Ms. Fangman will give you a date, hopefully within the next 2 weeks.
Thank you, sir.
Awesome.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank
Kevin,
you.
Thank you very much.
It's a very short board now, so.
Thank you. I just took a picture of those lights. Those lights are killing my eyes. What? No, those lights are killing my eyes, and I just said, can you see those lights?
Take care, everybody.
No, but it's that new lighting.
Right.
No,
Good night, everybody. Good night.
Thank you.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Just Bill is.
I'm sitting straight at it. If I saw-
But I think that's
Next
what
5
you
years.
Yes, in
Nice
5
to
minutes.
see you again.
Well, we have to discuss block
Blackhawks.
F.
Like, no, Blackhawks now right there.
Yep. Yeah.
So-
Nice to see you.
Well, you're on my
No,
number.
I was just going to address it.
All right, let's move on because it's kind of a busy night.
I think we're going to block F next.
No,
Do you want to do?
We
Is
got
that
a
what's
big-
next on the
No,
agenda?
no, we
The bill
got to
is-
the,
okay.
the bill is
All right.
there.
I guess I'll start. We did receive a letter from Pancaj today, sort of with some updates. I'm happy to forward it to the board after this meeting with you, where they are at with the project as of February 20th. The mechanics lien documents have been fully executed, and the original release of lien has been sent to the title company for recording and is being held by them in escrow until the loan funds. So Millen, if I'm interpreting this correctly, once the land loan is funded, right, that will all get paid, sort of automatically, right,
Yes,
with the
yes,
closing?
yes, that's my
Okay.
understanding. That's one of the disbursements of the bridge. loan,
Okay.
Is to pay off the accounts.
Got it, okay.
Has the IDA been released from the mechanics lien?
I believe so. But when I want to check. When it gets paid and satisfied, then we will. But as of this moment, I don't think so. Or we were, then they started a new mechanics lien action, and I think we are still in
Yeah,
in that one.
Believe will be released once.
Payments made.
Exactly. So the update on the payment being made, okay, is that the bridge loan, it looks like, is very close to closing. It looks like they had to restructure the loan, as we spoke about earlier. I believe the minority partner in the deal, right, had to be sort of restructured around his 9.5%. But the attorney is saying that they were supposedly coming in at 3 p.m. to execute. Elia, the lender, the private lender.
Today?
Yes. Again, you know, all remaining conditions have been cleared and the loan will close remotely and will fund upon closing. We estimate that the loan will close and fund within a few days. Now, to me, within a few days, today is Tuesday.
You said that a week ago.
Today is Tuesday. So really, if we don't get that email or that the eagle has landed by Friday, right?
Who is this Elia? You didn't want to hear that question.
Well, I feel like I've answered it, just not in this room. The private lender that was engaged by Daniel Livingston originally for financing of the project. The land loan will take him out.
And
Of the mortgage.
what is that dollar amount?
I don't have the number.
It's more than, I believe it's more than 10 million.
Yes, that's my understanding about it. It's a very large number.
It's a very large number. Put it between 10 to 15 million without having the exact number. I don't want to represent a number out of turn. So they're supposedly sending the update on that within the next few days, that the land loan will close, exploring now with 3 different potential lenders, each with different due diligence and exclusivity periods and deposits. So I did find out through some phone calls I received that Manoj was exploring lenders beyond the lender that we had been meeting with, Gatehouse. He is exploring other lenders, and they're confirming in this letter that there's 3 different potential lenders for the construction loan that they're exploring right now. The construction management agreement was previously circulated.
But it does not have GMP, so it's a construction management agreement, but again, it's not GMP, so it's.
And I think I represented this possibly at the last meeting, but, or with the last update. So Georgia Green Ventures has signed sort of a month-to-month pre-development advisory agreement with Manoj. According to this update, they are assisting in the review of the new, they say new assistance package. I assume that's the IDA application. In addition, the construction lenders have requested an updated construction timeline and draw schedule, which Georgia Green is also assisting with in reviewing. That does not mean they are an equity partner in this. You know, as you know, any new equity partners in the deal will have to come before the IDA board for consent if you continue beyond this period, which I'll let Millen address that at the end. But the IDA application is in review, and the due diligence checklist is cleared because the land loan is supposed to close this week. That's the update that was received today.
Okay, I have a very big problem. all this back and forth with the lender because of Dan Livingston refusing to cooperate, I can't for the life of me, and this is like contract 101. When the purchase agreement was closed, why weren't these certificates scanned at the closing? Why is this woman in her letter to you, I think,
Yes.
saying that they were waiting for Dan Livingston and he was holding them over a barrel? I mean, this guy is a bad guy. And for all the terms of the lending agreement to be redone because of Livingston, and now everything is put in Minogue's wife's name as the guarantee, and Livingston has no liability on the loan, that's a problem.
Okay, I don't disagree with anything that you're saying. Why Minogue's attorney didn't get all the documents that they now want when they bought out the prior owner, I can't tell you. We have to go back and ask them, what they got when. I wasn't a party, to that equity transaction. We either approved it and said, yes, you may do this, but, we weren't involved in the sale, if you will. But let me back up as to where we are now and what, if anything, is going to happen next. As instructed, on February 14th, I sent the default letter. There's an undated copy in your package. There's a 30-day cure period. And the default, remember, is they did not finish construction on the time frame. Okay, that was the other deal. That 30 days, because February is a short day, comes up March 17th. So as of March 17th, it will be an event of default, allowing the IDA to exercise all of its rights and remedies, one of which is to terminate the entire transaction. Notwithstanding that, Pankaj keeps giving us these basically weekly updates. I'm assuming in hopes that you collectively would either change your mind or give me different instructions. So, but from my perspective, unless you collectively tell me otherwise, even if the loan does fund, they long blew past the January 5th dates and the February 5th dates. So if you want to tell me to do something differently, that's obviously what I will do. If you want to wait and talk about it at another meeting, that's entirely up to you. But right now, the glide path, if you will, is March 17th. The date comes March 18th. I'll have documents for them to sign. If they don't sign, we probably will as power attorney and, and just terminate the entire transaction.
Well, I think, like what I said in my email, is like this cure period is another forbearance extension. So they have another 40 days to get their issues resolved.
Well, even if they, quote, resolve all the issues, they can't unring the bell. And they're not going to finish construction by March 17th. So come March 17th, I'm pretty darn certain it will be an event of default. And so this is just a matter of not when, no, not if, but when. So the answer is yes, March 18th, we can terminate the whole thing. Again, unless you are satisfied with their progress in this 30-day period and you want to, rescind your prior instructions to me.
Well, I think I've made my position very clear. I throw it out to the rest of the board. Start with the boss.
A deep in thought here. I see he's making an attempt, but I always feel like things are right on the date that we're having the meeting as well.
I guess the problem, if we don't do anything, and we left with a hole.
Well, that's what I'm very concerned about.
What happens?
You want to talk about this project since 2014. We have that project and the
Who will step in?
Yeah, the hole is awful.
Well, no, look, to your point, John, I think that they are going to do the project. But for the credibility of this board, I think we have no choice but to issue a default.
Okay.
And to show them that,
Yeah,
you know, we mean business, and, you know, we've given you
Enough
2
chances.
forbearance
Yeah.
extensions. And I think, I could be wrong, I think at the end of the day, they will develop the project, and hopefully with GGE.
That's just
That
the
would be
cover
the-
art, the cover
And,
art.
and the default letter, just to be clear, the default letter was issued, so you mean the termination.
Termination.
Right. And we've made it very clear to them that when and if they get their ducks in a row, they should feel free to come back and apply to the IDA. But that the biggest problem that we had was just this sort of whipsaw, and it's taking far too much advance time. And how often are you talking about it? You know, so what we've said to them is, even if we terminate, go and get your ducks lined up. Feel free to come back when you have everything lined up. And I think they've indicated that they want to do that. Quite honestly, the big ask that they have requested that we've not responded to is, well, if that happens, and then when we come back, can we get a credit for the prior IDA fee paid? And our answer so far has been, we'll deal with that at the time.
So what is our deadline at this point, March 16th?
Yeah, well, it's their deadline, which they
Yes,
cannot.
14 and 16.
But they will never meet it because they will not have constructed the project by then.
And
they will-
very long.
And even if we go back to the resolution that was passed, what was it, in January, or in December with that
December.
February 5th date or whatever it was, they were supposed to have their construction loan. Now, we should have the land loan, right, closed this week. But I don't see the construction. There's no way the construction loan will close by March.
Will this stop them from getting the loan though, too?
So that's a question I'd ask, because usually you need your IDA package to get your financing.
That's it, that's where I'm.
Yeah, I've asked the question, have not been told no. And since it is a land loan only, it may well be that between the guarantees and the value of the land, that they can just get this land.
Right, the land loan, but not the construction. loan.
Clearly,
Yeah.
well, presumably, they will need an IDA financial assistance package in order to get the construction loan. Right? I don't think anyone thinks they can build it and pay market rate taxes. You know, I'll be kidding. So far, they've been unable to build it even with an IDA package.
Yes.
But to your point, Pam and John, if they have too much invested to walk away from this project, that makes you feel good.
I agree. I'm just very concerned about, I mean, everywhere I go, senior center, people ask me about that hole on the hill. I mean, it just,
It's an eyesore.
it's an eyesore, it's a hole, it's got a horrible fence. I mean, we're really eager for it to be started at least.
I actually think that us doing this actually like fixes the timeline of the project as opposed to just keeping this going and whatever, and oh, we'll get it this week, or we'll do it, but like, no, this is it, get your stuff in a row and we'll start. Like, I feel like that
Okay.
gives more of a roadmap. We have no roadmap.
You have a lot more
You know?
experience with
You know?
this than we do.
No, but yeah, I think it kind of
And it will reset.
steers the ship a little bit.
If you decide to give financial assistance for the 2.0, presumably that will reset the pilot clock. Right? Again, as we're speaking with those guys, their pilot clock is now ticking away. They burned through their early exemption years.
My question is, you know, if they touch something, are we gonna have to worry about them having finance to do this project?
It's your decision, but I would envision that you would, before you approve it next time, want to be assured that they do have either financing lined up or close to lined up. Right now, these guys don't have a commitment letter, but, you know, in some respects, it's a chicken and the egg. right? You're not gonna get a construction loan without a pilot and, that kind of thing. But I'm predicting that before you reapprove it, you're gonna be comfortable that they really do have a lender who's, they issued a term sheet where they're ready to sign. It's gonna be your call.
Or at least a backup. Okay,
Yes, yes.
okay. I think we all agree with that.
Yes.
It puts the proper amount of pressure on them, not just like,
Yep.
whatever.
Before we
Yeah.
move on, just briefly inform us on, when we go to termination, they're gonna ask for a credit. What is, talk to me about monies they've paid, credits they're looking for.
There's no decision needed now. This credit, so it's not a refund. Nobody's getting any money back from the stuff they paid 6 or 8 years ago.
So how much have they paid to date?
I think I would rather, look at the numbers and get the board with that.
I have 10 minutes.
I know, and that's something I have to look at the records. I actually just saw a journal entry today with our auditors. I need to be informed to be able to give you that information.
All right, if the mayor has to leave, I'd like to just get a feel from the board, without the applicant being here. Where are we all on financial assistance for Glen Street?
You are
Lisa, we'll start with you.
It's always Lisa. I have to go first.
No,
Yes.
we're not voting.
I know, I know that. A couple of things. I feel more confident with this developer, with their forward plans. I think they've listened to the needs of our community. I like that they're bringing jobs to the forefront. I do think the rents are high. Just based on, Pam was sharing about seniors, I think about just us keeping young professionals in the community. That's my concern, but it is a building that can be refurbished, and they can help actually the community above them by, fixing the restraining wall, which could be another headache, for the city in general. So I'm actually looking forward to this because I think it brings jobs to the city and shows action, that we're bringing, new opportunities, new residents to Glen Cove. So that's where I'm leaning right now.
Well said. So you're in favor of giving them full assistance? Mr. Jimenez?
I think it's a good project. I think it would be good for the city. The only reservation, the numbers guy, I feel like their projections of what was put in front of us is a little loose. I feel like there's, I was really kind of fixated on the 65%, 75% debt. What will those payments do to the forecast, going down? And it looks like if it's a 75% debt, even with the pilot, they're gonna go negative.
Right.
So that would be my worry. I would love the project, but we don't want another project that goes upside down and all of a sudden we're chasing our tail. So I would like a little more meat behind those operating expenses that they said were high. I think we need a little bit more of that. And then if it makes sense, then yeah.
So, I want to be clear on what it is. Are you asking Kevin, our consultant, to run numbers with a 75% debt? Or you're asking the developer to
Develop.
Okay, so,
Maybe you could pass that on to Dan.
right, so, what is it that you're asking the developer?
So I want I would like the developer to quantify the numbers that were put in front of us, to make sure. I know we've had our guy, but
Okay.
they have to have forecasts on this and what they did. If they're thinking 75% debt versus 25% equity, that means those mortgage payments are gonna go. And that means that even with the pilot, if you look, that'll go negative. The project will go negative, even with the pilot. Now, and I know they step on it to make it that it needs to be viable with a pilot program, but we really kind of need to understand, what's the actual return on investors? What's the actual debt? What are you guys thinking is actually going to happen? And then we can make sure it makes sense to move forward. We don't have an upside down project.
So what I.
Does that make sense?
Oh, yeah, it does,
Okay.
and, so you want the developer to confirm that they agree with Kevin's numbers, and you want the developer to sort of do that same analysis, showing a.
Not with Kevin's numbers,
Numbers.
but with the actual real numbers.
What do they think is going to happen?
Okay.
Yeah.
And to be fair, Millen, the budget that was presented, I think, in Kevin's analysis was different than the budget that's in our IDA application, so I think we do need that updated budget.
Mhm.
And I think I heard Dave say we want a little more detail behind the operating expenses, like it was sort of referred to here and there, but
Yeah.
maybe the developers themselves can quantify those operating expenses.
All right, so we need an answer. If you get those numbers and you're satisfied with them, you're in favor of assistance.
Yeah.
Mr. Hartman.
No, basically, I think we're looking for assurance that this is, the numbers are there, so this will be an ongoing project.
Right.
Okay? It's not gonna start up and then.
It's all good sour.
There are some, 2 or 3 people bail out from the whole thing.
I mean, there is one concern with changing the development. You can really get a full story as to why that's
Sure. Yeah, it's loose, it feels loose.
Yeah, that's a good word.
What was
Yeah,
his problem?
yeah.
What was his problem?
Well, I'm really undecided because the financing is just so tight. I almost look at this. And then I say, why would you even want to bother to take something on like this? Where is the profit going to be? I'm very concerned about starting another project that isn't going to come to fruition. I really am. And we got an org chart today. The original org chart had a whole bunch of squares and stuff on it. I don't think it was.
That took 28 seconds to make.
Yeah, why did you send that?
Dan didn't want me to send it, but, you know, this is what we got today.
Oh, yeah.
And this is what the original one.
I think that's what the.
Well, it simplifies things,
And,
for sure.
I have reservations about that, as, especially being the leader of the city and having another hole, another empty space.
So, I don't get this, Raj. I don't.
Well, I
I
don't like also when they come and say, if we don't get this pilot, we can't do this
Well,
project.
they always say that.
And I,
That's the only way to do business.
I know, but
It kind of looks that way from this
Well, I
report.
think,
Right.
It
I
looks
think
like
by
if we give it to them,
statute
they also
also,
may not be able to.
you have to prove the but-for test, but for the pilot, you cannot.
Yeah, but. We get that.
Jim, you were saying?
Yeah, I just don't understand, not just the need for this project. I mean, I read through the whole thing. The proximity to the railroad station, really, you know, we're gonna walk there, you know, they don't walk, I mean, not walk. I looked at the property this week, I went down there and looked. Yeah, something needs to be done there, maybe, but I just don't understand why, so this is so tight. Let's get incentive here, you know, I don't know, 29 units.
That's
They
not a lot.
originally had much.
Yeah, I know, the density is higher.
And-
With retail, with retail.
And they were more affordable units. That's why I know there's a lot of talk about affordability tonight. I just remember years ago, it was a much
It's
denser
changed
project,
tremendously, yeah.
but more affordable. It's gone through a lot of iterations.
Well, my feeling is that, I think it's a good project. I don't think it's a great project to be an investor in. But I'm not an investor, so I think the problem I have with the project is the quid pro quo for the city. Okay, at the end of the day, hopefully when the project is completed within 18 months and it's full and it's 100% absorbed, at the end of the day, the city is getting one job. So we're giving him 250 or $2.5 million for one job. That's the problem I have. I'd love to see the project get done. But I don't think the benefit to the community is enough to offset 50% savings rate. I mean, if you said to me, you're gonna lower my taxes by 50%, I'm gonna do a lot more for the community of Glen Cove than supply one job. And I don't even know what that job is.
In
What
the
is-
end of the day, we're trying to figure out how many jobs, once it's all built, how many jobs it's really gonna be. A cleaning person that cleans the building, you know what, I can't imagine living more than 2 people.
Well, they've
No,
represented one in
Lisa
there.
asked, they said,
There's one job represented in the application.
One heavy construction job.
I hate to do this, but just given
I
that
have to
the
leave,
mayor,
so I'm gonna
we
let,
have to table that resolution.
okay,
Yeah.
and then I'm gonna leave. And
So-
then you can go back and
So
discuss.
unfortunately,
Yeah.
Garvey's Point Block F, I just want to do this while we have our chairperson. Garvey's Point Block F, we thought that they were going to be ready tonight with a regulatory agreement and an intercreditor agreement for the 56 affordable condominium units
Can I stop
on
you right there?
Garvey's Point.
Can you tell the board, what are those agreements? What are they?
Millen, do you want to?
Sure.
Yeah,
If I
quickly.
consent to something, I want to know, what's the
So-
regulatory and?
Well, we're not
intercreditor?
consenting to anything tonight, it's going to be
Well,
tabled.
eventually,
Yeah,
but I want to know
yeah,
what
He
they are.
can take over for me.
All right.
Yeah, he can take over for me, but I have a big meeting ahead. This is just too tight.
I know, we moved it up, we
It's too tight and.
we used to start at 6:30, now we're starting at 5:30, you know?
We're busy. Thanks for staying, man.
I have to stop really, but I mean, and Ann has to get reimbursed for her expenses, that's very important.
But Ann has to what? I vote no.
I go down.
I
No one has
would say, could we in some way vote to table on 7A and 7B and then you can.
Just 7A.
Just 7B, you want 7A.
No, oh, okay.
I
Oh,
attended
no,
that
no, I'm sorry, you
conference,
want
I attended a conference, the registration was covered. It was an IDA conference with colleagues across New York State, there were a lot of good trainings, discussions, it was a day and a half. I stayed at the house my family goes to up there, so I didn't incur any hotel expenses and drove an hour back and forth every,
You didn't stay at the Ritz-Carlton?
No, I did not stay in Albany. But I think the resolution is to cover my mileage and the parking fees for the 2 days.
So can I just do the resolution to the table and to cover that, then you can continue to talk and shut the meeting
Go
down?
ahead.
Okay, so, I make a motion to table resolution 7A, resolution of the Glen Cove IDA, taking official action toward and approving a consent fund to release documents for certain project for Barbie's Block F LLC and its affiliates or related designees. This is a motion to table. May I have a second?
Second.
Okay, I'm gonna make it Lisa tonight because I think she beat you to it.
Sure.
Okay,
And,
Lisa Trappatello,
LT.
Tom Scott,
Yes.
Dave Jimenez,
Aye.
John Fielding,
Aye.
Jim Capiello, Vice Chair Hartley. The
Yes.
chairperson, yes.
I vote aye. And then resolution 7B, resolution of the Glen Cove IDA approving expenditures associated with Anna Spenderman to attend the New York State Economic Development Council 2025 conference in Albany, New York on February 11th and 12th, 2025. May I have a second?
Second.
Vince Hartley. Will the clerk please poll the council?
Lisa Trappatello,
I vote aye.
Tom Scott.
Yes.
Dave Jimenez.
Aye.
John Fielding.
Aye.
Jim Capiello, Vice Chair Hartley.
Aye.
The chairperson, yes.
I vote aye. I gotta go.
I'm happy to talk about the two agreements, or you can close the meeting, and then I'm happy to stick around, whichever
You can do the closing of the meeting.
the chair prefers. Vince, that's you. Do you want to close the meeting and then talk
Chair,
about
do you-
lockout?
Can you hear what he's saying?
No, I'm sorry.
Do you want to close, you're the chair. Now, do you want to close the meeting and then talk about lockout? Or talk about lockout and then close the meeting?
I think it's better if you close the meeting, so this way, what we're talking about is broadcast.
Okay, everyone knows what it is, I think it's fine. So, was there a motion to adjourn?
So second.
I'll second it.
Okay. Yep.
Okay, Lisa Trappatello.
I vote aye.
Tom Scott.
Yes.
Dave Jimenez.
Aye.
John Fielding.
Aye.
Jim Capiello.
Aye.
Vice Chair Hartley.
Aye.
Okay, so we're adjourning at 7:23.
So, Tom, to answer your question,
Yes.
this is Block F,